Okay, so today what we're looking at is solving quadratics or quadratic equations using the quadratic formula, right? So the quadratic formula is a great tool that helps us solve for the solutions to the quadratic, okay? So what we need to do is first identify what is A, what is B, and what is C, because those are the three unknown variables that need to get plugged in into the quadratic formula. What's really nice about it is that the A, B, and C can be determined by looking at the equation that you currently have. So let's find A. Well, A typically shows up right in front of the x squared. It's the coefficient in front of x squared. But I don't see a number there. So what does that mean? It means that there's an invisible 1 as my coefficient. So guess what? This is going to be my A value. All right. So when I get to my quadratic formula, I will plug in 1 whenever I see A. Okay. The next one, I need to look for B. B is going to be the coefficient in front of the x. All right. So guess what? -8. That's going to be my B. Okay. Just the number, not the variable. Okay. So B is -8 only. And then finally, I need to find C. And C is going to be my constant. Okay. My constant. So that will be the number that has no variable attached to it. So a lot of times it's already in order. You just need to identify the numbers. Okay, identify the numbers. So here's what we'll do. Now that we have A, B, and C, A is 1, B is -8, right? Notice how it's not just 8, it's -8. The sign in front of the number matters. And then C is just +9, so it's 9. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go over to the quadratic formula, and we are going to plug everything in. All right, so we begin with x equals negative, because that's part of the formula. So I'm just bringing the negative down. And then I have b. So instead of b, I'm going to replace it with -8. Okay, I'm using parentheses because you see how I ended up with a double negative. I want to make sure that I'm using both of my negatives. The negative that comes from the formula, which is the first negative, but then the negative that comes from the -8. I want to make sure that both of those are being used. All right, that's important. We don't want to forget a negative here. Then we have plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. So I have to use b again. So instead of b, I'm going to use some parentheses, plug in my -8, and then I have my power of 2. Okay, minus 4 times a. Well, a is actually +1, so I'm going to replace a with a +1. And then c, instead of c, that's going to be +9. All over 2, and instead of a, I have +1. So I've plugged in all of my values into the quadratic formula. Now we just need to simplify and clean up as much as possible. So where do we begin? Let's begin by multiplying negative times negative. That's going to give us x is equal to +8 plus or minus the square root of. -8 squared is like saying -8 times -8. So that's going to be +64 minus 4 times 1 is 4 times 9, that's 36. All over 2. 2 times 1 is just 2. So after we've multiplied, now our next job is to continue to simplify even further. And I know that I can simplify the inside of my square root and get 64 minus 36. Let's go ahead and get that value. So x will equal 8 plus or minus the square root of, and that's going to give us, I believe that's 38 if I'm not mistaken. No, it's not. Let's do the math really quickly. Okay, I need to borrow from here. That's 5. So that'll be 8 and 2. So 28. Okay, so it's 28. All over 2. Okay. So then finally I have x is equal to 8 plus or minus the square root of 28 all over 2, right? There wasn't really a need to clean that up. But what I do need to do is split this up because I will get two solutions from this. Okay, I will get two solutions from it. And at times you will be required to use a calculator to simplify this, right? Also depends on what your teacher asks from you. Okay, so I'm going to split this up into the two possible solutions. The first one is using the positive sign, right? So I will have a solution that uses positive, which would be x is equal to 8 plus the square root of 28 all over 2. And then my second solution will utilize the minus. So I'm actually going to get x is equal to 8 minus square root of 28 all over 2. Okay, there may be times where you need to use the approximation, especially if you're using IXL. You're going to want to go ahead and get an approximate value for the square root of 28. Okay, so let's go ahead and find out what that is. I can take the square root of 28, which is 5.29. We can round that up to 5.292. So really what this is saying is 8 plus 5.292 all over 2. Okay, on the other side, same idea. X will be 8 minus 5.292 all over 2. Okay, so now we can simplify this even further. So we'll take 8 plus 5.292. That's going to give us 13.292 all over 2. X is equal to, this will give us 8 minus 5.292. So that's 2.708 divided by 2. All right, so lastly, we just want to go ahead and divide and get our final answer, or our final approximation at least. So let's take 13.292 divided by 2. That's equal to 6.646. And then x will be equal to 2.708 divided by 2. So we get 1.354, and these would be my two approximate solutions. So I should actually be using approximate values because these are not exact, since we took the square roots and we rounded our decimal. Okay, so these would be our two solutions to the quadratic equation.